Under the cold drizzle of Delta and Nine's lower district, the sky bled light through a canopy of steel. Rain slid down from the upper towers in long silver sheets, pooling in the cracks of a street where two small figures stood barefoot in the mud. Nora and Lyra waited beside the burned-out shell of what had once been their home. The smell of ozone and scorched concrete still lingered, mingled with something faintly human, something they tried not to name. Nora, the elder by 3 minutes, held the cracked data pendant in both hands as though it were a fragile heart still beating. Lyra clung to her sleeve, trembling, her reflection caught in the pendant's flickering light. The city around them did not care. Drones hovered silently overhead, scanning the ruins for salvage, indifferent to the children they passed. The Galactic Armies had completed their cleansing 2 nights ago. Standard procedure, they called it. Civilian resistance. Unauthorized medical aid. Treason. Their mother had been taken to the center square, accused of harboring refugees, and executed for compassion. The girls had watched from the crowd, too small to see above the shoulders of soldiers, but they had heard her last words. Be kind, even when it hurts. Now those words felt like broken glass lodged in their throats. Nora wiped the rain from her face and looked toward the transport docks, glowing faintly beyond the smog. We can't stay here, she whispered. They'll come back to clear the bodies. Where will we go? Lyra's voice was thin, almost swallowed by the rain. Anywhere else. They moved through the alleys like shadows, their small feet splashing through puddles that mirrored the neon sky. Every sound felt like a threat. The hum of an engine, the click of a weapon, the hiss of steam. The city was no place for orphans. Not human ones. The twins were among the last of their kind on Delta 9, a planet now ruled by alien generals who saw humans as expendable labor. The armies called it order. The locals called it occupation. When they reached the old transport lot, the air smelled of fuel and rust. A lone smuggler sat beside a flickering heater, half his face replaced by cheap cybernetics. He eyed them with dull curiosity. You shouldn't be out here, he said. Curfew's on. Armies shoot first. Nora stepped forward. We're looking for someone. The smuggler laughed, a sound more cough than mirth. What could 2 scraps like you possibly be looking for? Lyra hesitated, then whispered, Baba Yaga. The man's laughter died. The heater's orange light danced across the wet metal of his face, casting long shadows. That's not a name to say out loud, little one. You know her? Nora pressed. I know the stories. The human ghost. The Witch of Steel. Some say she hunts the armies across the outer belt, kills their generals in their sleep. Others say she's just a myth humans made to feel brave. He leaned forward, lowering his voice. Either way, she doesn't come cheap. We don't have money, Lyra admitted, but we have this. She lifted the pendant. The man's cybernetic eye zoomed in, scanning. A data core, he murmured. Old model. Medical encryption. Where'd you? It's our mother's. Nora cut him off. It has her voice, her memories, her face. It's all we have. The smuggler studied them for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, he sighed. You remind me of someone he used to know. A doctor who believed the armies could be reasoned with. He stood, limping toward an old comms console patched with mismatched wires. You want Baba Yaga? Fine. There's a relay beacon near the ship graveyard north of here. You'll find a contact, or maybe a corpse. Either way, it's the only path you've got. Before Nora could thank him, the man shut off the heater. Go before I change my mind. They left quickly, slipping into the fog. Behind them, a drone descended over the smuggler's hideout. They didn't look back when it fired. The ship graveyard stretched for kilometers, a wasteland of twisted hulls and shattered engines. Blue lightning crackled across the metallic dunes as atmospheric storms rolled in from the east. The twins climbed through the wreckage, guided only by the pendant's dim pulse. Every few steps, Lyra glanced at Nora, waiting for reassurance. Nora kept her face hard, though her hand shook. Their mother had once told her that fear was a tool, not a chain. She repeated it silently, step by step. At the top of a ridge, they saw it. A thin relay tower bent, like a broken finger, still transmitting weak static. Beneath it lay the remains of a shuttle, its cockpit glass shattered. Nora crawled inside, searching. There, half buried under ash, she found a small transponder marked with a faded insignia. 3 slashes intersecting a circle. The symbol of Baba Yaga. She pressed the switch. The device hummed, projecting a faint holographic image of a woman cloaked in static. Only her eyes were clear, cold, mechanical, and unmistakably human. "Who seeks me?" The voice was metallic but low, steady. Nora swallowed. "My name is Nora. This is my sister, Lyra. The Galactic Armies, they killed our mother." The hologram flickered. "And why come to me?" "Because they say you kill monsters." A long pause. The image distorted, resolving into sharper focus. The woman studied them with a gaze heavy as gravity itself. What would 2 children offer in exchange for death? Lyra held out the pendant. Her heart. For a moment, nothing moved. Then the hologram leaned closer, her tone softening by a degree. "Keep it safe. I will find you." The transmission cut. The air seemed to shiver, as though the entire sky had inhaled. In the distance, a dark shape detached itself from the clouds. A ship, angular and silent, descending through the storm. Its lights were blood red against the rain. The girls clung to each other as the vessel's engines scattered dust and fire across the wreckage. When the noise faded, a single ramp extended, touching the mud before them. Nora looked at Lyra. "We found her," she whispered. Lyra's voice trembled. "Are we sure we want her to find us?" A silhouette appeared in the doorway, tall and still, framed by the glow of the ship's interior. For an instant, the rain froze midair. The figure spoke, her voice cutting clean through the wind. "Get inside before the storm kills you." The twins obeyed without a word. The ramp lifted, sealing them in darkness. As the ship rose, the ground below vanished in a blur of rain and metal. Through a small window, Nora saw the world shrink into a smear of light. She felt the weight of what they'd begun settle in her chest. Somewhere deep in the ship, machinery hummed like a heartbeat. The air smelled of oil, ozone, and something faintly human. Lyra reached for her sister's hand. "Do you think she'll help us?" Nora watched the storm fade behind them. "She said she kills monsters. Maybe that's all she does." Neither of them spoke again. The ship tilted upward, cutting through the clouds toward a horizon of cold stars. Outside, thunder rolled across the empty sky, echoing like a promise, one that neither child yet understood, but both would see fulfilled. The galaxy below slept on, unaware that 2 little girls had just hired its most feared ghost. The ship's corridors hummed like a sleeping animal, metal bones alive with quiet power. Nora and Lyra followed the woman who had rescued them through a narrow passage lit by thin strips of blue light. She moved like smoke, soundless, deliberate, and predatory. The children could feel her presence in the air, an invisible pressure that made their hearts race. When she finally spoke, her voice carried the calm certainty of someone who had already decided too many fates. "You can call me Baba Yaga. No one who matters calls me anything else." Nora studied the long hair, streaked with gray, the faint glint of metal at the base of her neck where flesh met circuitry. Baba Yaga's posture was human, but her movements were not. Every step was measured, efficient, devoid of hesitation. Lyra walked closer to her sister, clutching the pendant that now hung around her neck. The corridor ended at a circular chamber filled with instruments and hollow screens that projected maps of war-torn systems. A large viewport showed a field of fractured moons turning slowly against a sea of stars. Baba Yaga stopped before a console and tapped a command. "You said the Galactic Armies killed your mother. Tell me everything." Nora hesitated. She was a medic. She helped people the armies called insurgents. When they found out, they made an example of her. Her voice was steady, but her fists trembled. "They didn't even let us bury her." Lyra's voice broke through the silence. "They called her a traitor for healing humans." Baba Yaga's eyes flickered with reflected starlight. "Name of the commander who ordered it?" "We don't know," Nora admitted. "Just that the soldiers were the crest of the 7th Division." Baba Yaga turned toward the console, fingers brushing against the hollow display. The image of a crimson insignia appeared, a serpent wrapped around a sword. The seventh. That's no small vendetta. Her gaze shifted to the girls. You understand what you're asking me to do? Lyra nodded, her face pale but certain. You kill monsters. Baba Yaga almost smiled, but the expression never reached her eyes. So they say. She leaned closer to the map, studying lines of data. Killing monsters is easy. Finding the right ones takes work. Nora took a tentative step forward. You'll help us then? I haven't decided, Baba Yaga replied. Vengeance isn't a child's game. It costs more than you can pay. We have our memories, Lyra said quickly, lifting the pendant. Everything she was is in here. That made the woman pause. She reached out, took the pendant with surprising gentleness, and examined its cracked surface. A hard drive, she murmured. Obsolete, but functional. Your mother must have known someone in the underground circuits to encode herself like this. She said it carefully on the console. You trade her voice for blood? Nora swallowed hard. We trade it for justice. The ship's hum deepened, as if the machine itself responded to the word. Baba Yaga studied the girls for a long time before turning away. Justice, she repeated softly. That's a word that died before either of you were born. She reached for the pendant again, pressed a button, and a small hollow image appeared above it. An older woman's face, worn but kind, eyes bright even through the distortion. Her voice, faint and fragile, filled the room. If they come for you, run. And if you can't run, forgive. Lyra turned away, covering her mouth. Nora stood still, as if carved from stone. Baba Yaga shut off the projection. Forgiveness won't save this galaxy. She picked up the pendant and handed it back. But maybe memory will. Keep her close. You'll need her. What happens now? Nora asked. Now, Baba Yaga said, we prepare. The Mortalis stirred to life, its engines roaring with restrained fury. In the armory, weapons lined the walls like ancient relics. Baba Yaga moved among them, checking each with mechanical precision. The girls watched from the doorway as she strapped a plasma sidearm to her hip and a blade of dark alloy across her back. Every motion spoke of ritual and old, practiced readiness. Lyra couldn't help asking, why do they call you Baba Yaga? The woman glanced over her shoulder. Once, there was a witch who lived in a house that walked on legs of metal. People came to her for miracles or for death. I built my house among the stars instead. Her tone softened. Names have a way of sticking to those who survive long enough. Nora stepped forward. Were you a soldier? Baba Yaga paused. I was human once. That's all you need to know. She sealed the last compartment and gestured toward the cockpit. Come, you should see where your vengeance begins. From the bridge, the galaxy unfolded like a wound. Dozens of star systems linked by routes of conflict and occupation. Baba Yaga tapped commands, and data scrolled across the screen. 7th Division headquarters orbit a gas giant called Klein. But that's just the arm. The head sits here. She magnified a red-marked world labeled Veritas Prime. Their generals gather there for tribunals, executions, and displays of power. That's where she died, Lyra whispered. Baba Yaga nodded. Then that's where this ends. But first we need information. Names, movements, codes. Her gaze hardened. You'll stay on the ship until I say otherwise. Touch nothing that breathes or hums. Nora squared her shoulders. We can help. You can stay alive, Baba Yaga replied. That will be help enough. Hours passed in silence as the ship prepared for jump. The girls sat together near the viewport, watching lightning crawl across the void. Nora thought of their mother's hands, gentle, warm, now reduced to data and memory. She wondered if vengeance would make that memory clearer or blur it forever. Lyra leaned against her shoulder, half asleep. Across the room, Baba Yaga worked without rest, adjusting trajectory data and calibrating cloaking systems. There was a rhythm to her movements, mechanical but human in its weariness. Finally, the engines powered down, and she approached them. We're leaving the neutral zone, she said. Once we cross the belt, every signal we send will be hunted. If you want to turn back, do it now. Nora looked up, eyes fierce. We can't turn back. For a heartbeat, Baba Yaga searched her face, as though seeing something that reminded her of someone long gone. "Then you learn my rules," she said. "First, I don't kill without reason. Second, I don't run. Third, when I start, I finish." Lyra asked quietly, "What happens if you break your own rules?" "I never do." Baba Yaga turned away before either could ask more. When Immortalis jumped into faster-than-light travel, the stars stretched into ribbons of light. The vibration rattled through the hull, steady and deep, like a heartbeat multiplied by machinery. Nora felt the ship move around them, not hostile but alive, as though Baba Yaga's will alone kept it from collapsing under its own power. Lyra watched the streaking lights with wide eyes. "Do you think she's really human?" she whispered. Nora thought of the woman's eyes, too sharp, too calm, too tired. "I think she remembers how to be." The jump ended abruptly. Outside the viewport, the debris field of a shattered fleet drifted, frozen in silence. Baba Yaga stood before it like a priest before a grave. "This is where they tested their first purge weapons," she said softly. "Thousands of humans erased in an instant." She turned back to the girls. "Understand what you're asking for. When I kill them, there will be no going back." Nora met her gaze. "We don't want to go back." For the first time, Baba Yaga smiled, a small, haunted curve of the lips. "Then welcome to the hunt." The ship's lights dimmed, and the engines began to hum again, lower, quieter, like a predator drawing breath before a strike. Outside, the wreckage turned slowly in the dark, reflecting fragments of light that looked almost like stars. The Mortalis angled toward them, engines flaring, vanishing into the shadows where vengeance waited. The Mortalis glided through the black sea between stars, silent as a thought, unspoken. In the command chamber, dim lights traced the contours of Baba Yaga's face, revealing the lines of exhaustion carved into her expression. Her hands moved over the console with mechanical precision, summoning fragments of intercepted transmissions, each one carrying the static hiss of war. The 7th Division's signals wove a lattice of movement, convoys, patrol routes, coded orders, all converging toward Veritas Prime. It was a net woven by arrogance, and she intended to tear through it. Behind her, Nora and Lyra watched in silence, the glow of the screens reflecting in their eyes like distant fire. "They're moving prisoners again," Baba Yaga said. "Humans, mostly. Forced labor for the orbital shipyards." Her voice carried no inflection, but the muscles in her jaw tightened. "They build the weapons that will kill more of their own." She shut off the display and turned to the girls. "I could take out the transports, but not alone. I'll need someone to run the pulse jammers." Nora straightened. "Tell me what to do." "You'll follow instructions exactly. Mistakes get people killed." Lyra shifted uneasily. "What about me?" "You'll stay here and monitor the power grid. If the systems overheat, you vent the excess charge, not panic." "Understood." Lyra nodded, her small hands trembling. "Understood." The plan unfolded like a lesson in survival. Baba Yaga explained the timing, the sequence, the silence required between breaths. Nora memorized every word. When they launched the stealth drones, their bodies vibrated with the hum of energy building in the ship's core. Outside, the void stirred as the Mortalis drifted toward the convoy's perimeter. 3 warships, a carrier, and a line of transport vessels chained together like slaves. Through the viewport, the ships gleamed under the pale shimmer of a nearby nebula. Baba Yaga leaned forward, her voice low. "Remember, we're not heroes. We do this to cut the head, not save the tail." Nora's reply was quiet but firm. "Our mother saved people. You said justice costs something. Let us pay." The assassin didn't argue. She simply nodded once and pressed her palm to the console. The Mortalis vanished into the dark. Minutes stretched into centuries. The hum of the engines faded until the only sound was breathing. Then Baba Yaga gave the signal. Nora triggered the pulse jammer, and a surge of blue light cascaded through the convoy's communication network. The alien ships blinked in confusion as their sensors died. The Mortalis slipped beneath their hulls like a ghost, releasing EMP spikes into each reactor core. Explosions flared, controlled, surgical, leaving escape pods drifting into space. Target neutralized, Baba Yaga said. Move to the next sector, but the next signal didn't match. It was sharper, encrypted differently. The holographic display flickered, showing a transmission marked Priority Command, 7th Division Central. A familiar insignia pulsed on the screen, the serpent around the sword. Nora froze. That's them. Baba Yaga's gaze narrowed. How they find us so quickly? The answer came before she could finish. A flare of red light burst outside the viewport as a massive cruiser decloaked behind them, its cannons already locking on. The Mortalis shuddered under the first blast. Warning sirens howled through the corridors. Lyra screamed, clutching the railing. They knew we were coming. Hold on. Baba Yaga's voice sliced through the chaos. She slammed the controls, twisting the ship into a dive. Plasma fire streaked past, burning holes through the black. They planted a trace on the convoy signals. Smart bastards. Nora grabbed Lyra, pulling her toward the lower bay. We can help. You can stay alive. Baba Yaga shouted back, rerouting power to the shields. Go! The Mortalis spun violently, diving through debris. Metal fragments clawed at the hull like claws of the dead. Inside the bay, the girls huddled against the walls as the ship groaned under pressure. The noise was deafening, yet beneath it came something worse. A voice through the static of the comms, deep and cold. Human Spectre, it said in the alien tongue, translated by the ship systems. Your legend ends today. Baba Yaga's face hardened. Not today. She fired countermeasures, flooding the space with false echoes. The cruiser's cannons misfired, striking its own escort. The explosion illuminated the cockpit, momentarily revealing the outline of Baba Yaga's hand trembling against the controls. For the first time, she looked mortal. When the battle ended, the Mortalis floated amid wreckage. Fires burned silently in the vacuum. Baba Yaga powered down the weapons and breathed slowly, as though convincing herself she was still alive. The girls emerged, pale and shaken. Lyra's eyes were wide. They said your name. Baba Yaga didn't turn. They've been hunting me for years. I killed their first general on Terra's last night. They never forgave humanity for surviving. Nora approached cautiously. Why did you fight them? Before us. Because I was there, she said quietly. When they burned the cities. When they made the children dig graves for their parents. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I learned that monsters wear uniforms. The silence between them deepened. Then Baba Yaga spoke again, more measured. We'll reach Veritas Prime soon. The generals will be there. The ones who ordered your mother's death. Nora clenched her fists. Then we finish this. The ship entered a quiet drift. Hours passed in uneasy peace. The twins rested in the crew quarters, their dreams haunted by flashes of flame and gunfire. Baba Yaga remained on the bridge, replaying fragments of intercepted transmissions. In the reflection of the viewport, she could see her own eyes, tired, hollow, but burning with something dangerously close to hope. When Nora woke, she found Baba Yaga at the console again. You don't sleep, she said softly. I stopped needing to, came the reply. Sleep is for those who believe they'll wake to something better. Nora hesitated, then asked, Were you ever like us? The woman's expression didn't change. Once, long ago, my daughter died when the armies took the colonies. I thought vengeance would fill the hole she left. She looked away. It didn't. The confession hung heavy in the dim air. Nora stepped closer, unsure whether to comfort or curse her. Then why keep fighting? Because someone has to, Baba Yaga said simply. Because if I stop, they win. Outside, the first light of Veritas Prime rose like a blade across the darkness. Massive orbital rings glowed in defense grids, circling a planet shrouded in cloud and cruelty. The Mortalis approached on silent engines, its hull darkened to match the void. Every warning light on the console pulsed red, but Baba Yaga ignored them. She turned to the girls, her voice calm. This is where we end it. You'll stay here until I call. No arguments. Nora met her gaze. We've come this far. We won't hide. Baba Yaga's mouth twitched, a flicker between admiration and sorrow. Bravery isn't the same as survival. Lyra stepped forward, her small voice steady. Our mother wouldn't want us to be afraid. For the first time, Baba Yaga rested a hand on the girl's shoulder. Then don't be. But remember what fear keeps you alive. She activated the stealth field, and the ship vanished into the planet's upper atmosphere. Clouds tore apart as they descended toward the glittering city below, a maze of spires, hangars, and towering courts where the army's commanders gathered. The Mortalis landed in the shadows of a massive tribunal dome. The engines dimmed. The air felt heavy, charged with memory and promise. Baba Yaga stood, fastening her blade. Nora whispered, "What if we fail?" Baba Yaga glanced toward the glowing horizon. "Then the galaxy will still hear your mother's name." She stepped toward the ramp as it opened to the sound of rain against metal. The storm of Veritas Prime echoing the night, their journey began. The girls followed her into the dim light, fear and determination entwined in every heartbeat. Above them, the sky burned red from the reflection of warships preparing for battle. Ahead lay the tribunal, the heart of the monster they had come to kill. The rain on Veritas Prime fell in heavy sheets, washing the metallic streets clean of color. Thunder rolled through the towering spires, echoing like distant artillery. The Mortalis rested in the shadow of the tribunal dome, its hull dark and steaming. Baba Yaga stood at the base of the ramp, her long coat whipping in the wind, her expression carved from silence. Nora and Lyra stood beside her, small silhouettes against the storm. Before them loomed the great court of the Galactic Armies, a fortress of light and judgment where death wore the mask of law. Baba Yaga's voice was low, almost gentle. "You will stay behind me. No matter what happens, you don't run. You see this through." The girls nodded, too afraid to speak. She drew her weapon, a slender plasma blade that hummed softly, its glow reflected in her eyes. They built this place to make the innocent confess. Tonight, it will remember the guilty. They entered through the shattered side gate, moving through corridors lined with alien script and banners soaked by rain. The sound of their steps was lost beneath the hum of machines. In the grand hall, alien officers sat in elevated rows, their faces marked with the insignia of command. At the center stood a raised platform where judgments were passed, flanked by silver statues of the Army's founders. Every surface gleamed sterile and merciless. When Baba Yaga stepped into the light, the chamber erupted with movement. Guards drew their weapons, alarms screamed, and the tribunal's high commander rose from his throne, his scaled skin glistening under the light. "You dare trespass upon a court of the armies?" he thundered. Baba Yaga didn't slow. "I dare to finish what you started." Energy bolts tore through the air. She moved faster than thought, deflecting fire with a flick of her blade. Each strike was precise, silent, efficient. One by one, the guards fell, their weapons scattering across the floor. Smoke filled the chamber, mingled with the metallic scent of ozone. The High Commander bared his teeth, slamming his clawed hand on the console that activated the defense drones. The ceiling opened like an iron flower. Dozens of drones descended, targeting her with red crosshairs. Baba Yaga spun her blade, slicing through the first wave before the drones could lock. The rest unleashed a storm of plasma fire that turned the room into a chaos of light and motion. Nora and Lyra ducked behind the pillars, covering their ears. The noise was unbearable. Then the storm stopped. When they looked up, Baba Yaga stood in the center of the room, surrounded by wreckage, her coat torn and smoldering. She wiped a streak of blood from her cheek, her expression unreadable. "Your machines don't scare me," she said. "You taught me how to kill them." The High Commander snarled. "You were a soldier of the old Earth Coalition, a ghost clinging to a dead flag. You think this vengeance will change anything?" "I'm not here for change," she replied. "I'm here for truth." She threw a small sphere onto the floor. It exploded into a pulse of blue light, projecting holographic images into the air. The Army's archives, stolen transmissions, execution orders signed by the tribunal. The images shifted until one froze. Their mother, bound and bloodied, standing before the very same court. Her voice rang through the chamber. Mercy is not weakness. The words cut through the smoke like light through water. The twins stepped forward, trembling. Lyra's voice broke. That's her. The aliens murmured, unease rippling through their ranks. The High Commander turned pale under his green scales. Those files are restricted. Fabrications. Your own code markers prove otherwise, Baba Yaga said coldly. Your justice system recorded every atrocity. I'm only showing it back to you. She turned toward the gathered officers, her voice rising. This is the truth your empire, your armies, buried. You call humans weak, but you feared us enough to erase what we stood for. You feared our kindness more than our guns. Nora stepped to her side. You killed her because she wouldn't stop helping. The High Commander's claws clenched around his staff. She defied order. She harbored enemies of the state. The armies demand obedience. Obedience is not justice, Baba Yaga said, and you will answer for it. He swung his weapon, a halberd crackling with energy. Baba Yaga caught the shaft mid-swing and drove her blade through his chest. The light from his weapon flickered out as he fell to his knees, disbelief frozen on his face. The hall fell silent except for the hum of the dying drones. Baba Yaga looked down at him. This isn't vengeance. This is memory. She pulled her blade free, and the High Commander collapsed, lifeless. Nora and Lyra stood still, eyes wide, hearts hammering. Around them, the alien officers lowered their weapons. None dared to move. Baba Yaga walked to the center platform and activated the main transmission beacon. You wanted witnesses, she said, her voice echoing through the vast chamber. Now the whole galaxy will see. The beacon flared, sending the tribunal's confession and execution feeds to every public channel across the systems. On worlds under the Army's control, civilians looked up to see the truth play across their skies. The human medic who died for compassion, the assassin who avenged her, the children who watched it all. The silence that followed was the sound of fear changing sides. When the signal ended, Baba Yaga powered down the console. It's done, she said quietly. Lyra's voice was small. What happens now? Baba Yaga looked at her, then at Nora. Now the galaxy decides what to do with its conscience. She turned away, heading toward the exit. The girls followed, stepping over the broken weapons and the bodies of those who had sworn themselves to tyranny. Outside, the storm had eased to a soft rain. The neon lights of Veritas Prime reflected in the puddles, red and blue mingling like blood and hope. Nora stopped at the edge of the steps, looking back at the tribunal. Will they come after us? Baba Yaga's reply was quiet. Always. But you've already won more than I ever did. You made them remember. Lyra hesitated. What about you? I'll disappear. Like I always do. She glanced up at the sky, where the first ships of the Army's fleet were already breaking formation, their discipline unraveling. You don't need me anymore. Nora reached out. You could stay. With us. The woman smiled faintly, a shadow of warmth breaking through the steel of her expression. If I stayed, you'd never learn to live without ghosts. She started down the steps, her silhouette fading into the mist. The twins stood in the rain, the pendant between them glowing faintly with their mother's recorded voice. Be kind, even when it hurts. They listened until the words faded into the rhythm of the storm. Then Nora took her sister's hand. We're going home, she said. Where's home? Lyra asked. Wherever we build it, Nora answered. They walked through the empty streets as dawn broke, light spilling over the city's metal bones. In the distance, the Mortalis waited, engines humming like a heartbeat ready to begin again. The rain washed their faces clean, and for the first time since the war began, they smiled. High above them, in the thinning clouds, a dark shape moved silently toward the stars. Baba Yaga watched the sun rise from the cockpit, her reflection merging with the light. The galaxy was still broken, still cruel, but somewhere in the storm, two children had chosen kindness over fear. It was enough. She turned the ship toward the horizon, her voice barely a whisper. Sleep well, little ghosts. The monsters will remember you. The Mortalis ascended into the dawn, disappearing beyond the clouds. leaving behind a world that would never be the same again. The story of the Medic's daughters, the Witch of Steel, and the fall of the Galactic Armies would spread from planet to planet, a tale told in whispers and in hope. And across the scattered colonies of humanity, children would look to the stars and know that even in the darkest corners of the galaxy, someone had once made the monsters afraid.